Try it. It's very hard. 30 days, no complaining, no opinions, no gossip, and no yelling. So there's four things, I guess. So that's it for the complaining department. I put in the title that time I almost died, and yes, there was a time that I almost died in a car accident. Um, I was very, very fortunate. I think God was watching out for me. But I was thinking about this because last week I did a Def Leppard drum cover, and unless you've been living in a hole for the last 30 some years, all of us know that Rick Allen, the drummer for Def Leppard, has one arm. And he's quite fantastic at what he does. And using one arm to play and his feet to do everything else is really remarkable. It's very impressive if you've actually really paid attention to what he is doing. And there's just a lot going on back there for a man with one arm, and it impresses me. But my point was, I put this video out there, and some of my drummer friends just in jest, said, "You're cheating because I have two arms, right?" And then I had a few people on my YouTube channel and my TikTok make a comment about, let's see you try it with one hand. Like, yeah, you can handle playing this song because you have two arms, but your Def Leppard's drummer did it with one arm. So you're nowhere near the talent that Rick Allen is. That has zero to do with why I chose that song to play. I love that Def Leppard Hysteria album. That, in most people that I see jumping on here may agree that Def Leppard album was really, really incredible. I did have some people criticizing me that I was playing a Def Leppard song using both my limbs. And it just seems ridiculous. As ridiculous as if I would have tied my left arm behind my back and did a drum cover of me playing with one arm. I don't know what comments would have come of that, saying, "Now you're mocking Rick Allen?" No, I would not be mocking Rick Allen. So I think in that scenario, just with some people, you just can't win. The argument is ridiculous. There's no use in even engaging with those kind of comments. And if a comment gets really ugly, I just simply delete it and go on with my day. But all that being said, I have played a concert with my left arm in a cast, in a sling, hours after a terrible car accident. And so what had happened was I was 21, 22 maybe years old. I can't remember for sure. But it was in the month of January, and I was doing a fill-in gig playing drums for a band called Judah. And Judah was a Christian rock band that was from the Treasure Valley, and they had a concert going on, and their drummer at the time, Ray Wright, had some college course or some test or something was preventing him from being able to do this concert, this show. And a little side story with Judah was one of those bands that had a lot of momentum going for them, and they eventually, I think, as a band, moved to Nashville in the early 90s, and I think they had a name change. They changed the name of the band. I don't know if they had just a developmental deal or if they had a record deal. I don't remember the circumstance for that exactly, but all their eggs were in that basket, and somehow it ended up all falling apart. But going back, I mean, Judah was kind of a big deal at the time, around here at least. And so I was going to fill in for him. I learned all the songs for the show. I think I went to 4 or 5 rehearsals, maybe 6. And this concert was being held in Caldwell, which, if you guys aren't from here, Caldwell is about 30 miles southwest of Boise. Southwest of Boise. So we had a rehearsal at the venue that we were going to perform. And so all my drums were there set up, the lighting, sound, all that stuff was ready to go. And I was driving home that night from Caldwell back to the house I lived in with all my roommates. And as I approached the airport, I was driving a Toyota 4x4 pickup. And as I got to the airport, it looked like somebody had drawn a line on the freeway, and it was just white and kind of foggy. Up to that point, it was clear, roads were fine. But apparently what had happened is the fog was rolling in, and so what airports do is they seed the clouds. Somehow they either shoot something up into the air, or maybe planes fly and they drop something in the air to reduce the fog. And what that does is it turns to kind of like a snow. And so that was on the freeway, and it made the freeway just a sheet of ice. And so those from Boise know where the Cole and freeway interchange is. That was before that was all redone. It was just a 2-lane bridge that went over the freeway on Cole, where Wild Waters used to be and all that. I don't think Wild Waters existed still at that point, but that's where the accident happened. I was in the right-hand lane heading east, going 70 miles an hour, and just suddenly, that fast, my pickup spun and was facing the other direction, and it kept spinning. I didn't panic. I didn't freak out. All this happened so fast. The only thought that went through my mind at that moment was, this is it? Like, I just knew in that moment I was going to die. And I wasn't scared. There was like no worry. It was just, this all happened so very quickly. And then I was out. I thought, this is it. Boom, I was out, gone. And the next thing I knew, I had a state cop shining a flashlight in my face. I was hanging upside down from my seatbelt inside my pickup, and there was blood everywhere. And I didn't know where the blood was coming from. I didn't feel any pain. I must have bumped my radio somehow, and it was loud. It was blaring loud, and this cop's trying to talk to me, and I'm trying to fumble around. I'm so disoriented, and I got the radio to shut off, and he's telling me, don't move. So I don't know what he can see. Probably blood all over me. And my only thought was, I need to get out of this pickup. I need to get out. So I undid my seatbelt and kind of dropped to would be the roof of the truck on the inside. And I crawled out, or I was trying to kind of army crawl my way to where the passenger window had been. But I didn't know until I got out of my truck, but my pickup had been smashed flat. And I crawled out of a area where my window used to be that was maybe 16 inches wide and maybe 10 inches tall. It was a very, very small little square rectangular space. And I got my arms out, and so the state cop grabbed me by my forearms and just gently pulled me until I was out of the wreck. And then that's when I realized how horrible this accident was. I was bleeding from my head. I didn't know how bad. I just had blood all over my face and in my hair and running down. And my left wrist, I could feel it getting tight. But I was moving my fingers and my wrists, and I was checking my back, because I'm walking around. And I was really upset. I couldn't believe that. Now, this is when the fear happened. As I got ready to roll, I was just at this peace, like, I'm dead and I can't do anything about it. And I was just so, this happened in milliseconds probably, that I thought that. But now that I survived this accident, I'm standing on the freeway, and the other thing that I remember is when the accident happened, I do remember there was nobody on the freeway. There was nobody around me, because this is like 1:30 in the morning, I think. It was really late at night. I think it was 1:30, maybe 2:30 in the morning. I don't remember exactly. Somewhere in that time frame. And there was no oncoming traffic either. When I came to and I was out of the truck, there was a line of flares down the freeway and a big line of traffic all backed up. So what had happened is I hit the ice. I was in the right-hand lane going east, spun, hit the median. my truck rolled over and over, and it ended up upside down in the left-hand lane going west. And the direction of the truck roll made me lay down towards the passenger side, and the cab of the truck was smashed below the headrests of the seats. And where my steering wheel was, the top of my steering wheel was flattened from it hitting the pavement. And somehow in all of that, I shattered my left wrist, was just shattered. And I had no idea. It was swollen, and I was wearing a watch, and it was getting really, really tight. So I took my watch off, and the state cop took me, and he sat me in the back of his car. I remember him calling my parents, and I was thinking at that time, like, I hope he says immediately that I'm okay, and that my parents wouldn't just immediately flip. And so I remember him calling, and he said, "Yeah, this is Officer so and so from the Idaho State Department. I have your son in the back of my car. He is okay, but he was in a car accident, and we're taking him to St. Alphonsus Hospital to be evaluated, and he is bleeding pretty bad from his head, and he might have a broken arm or something like that." And so, of course, my parents lived out in Greenleaf, so they drove to Boise and to come get me. I had an ambulance show up. They put me in an ambulance. They strapped me down, just like you would expect, and drove me to the hospital. They isolated my neck and all of those kind of things, because people can be in shock and pumped full of adrenaline, and your body's going to react to protect itself. And so I'm, in that state, and the paramedics are strapping me down. They're isolating my neck. They're checking my toes. They took my shoes off, all of that. Checking my heartbeat, checking my pupils, making sure that I hadn't been drinking, which I had not been drinking whatsoever. I had actually, at that point in my life, I didn't drink alcohol at all, zero, not anything. And so I was completely sober and sat there in the hospital room, and they were again checking me, and they did an x-ray, said my arm was starting to really hurt. My head had a pretty good laceration in it, and they, I was growing my hair long, and they had to shave this spot about that big on my head so that they could stitch my head back together. So I had long hair, but then I had this patch that was shaved down so that they said, "This really sorry was all that we could do, to stitch your head back together." So again, I wore a hat for a long time, tried to grow my hair back out. And what had happened is all these little bones that are inside your wrist here got compressed and smashed together. And I think I might have had my hand on the steering wheel in that flipping motion, and that part of that smashing broke my wrist. And the larger bone that's in your forearm, I don't remember the name of it, but it was split kind of down the middle, and it looked like a lightning bolt going down and around. And I think that went down like 4 or 5 inches into my bone. So they put a cast on me, and I don't remember if it went past. I think it did go around my elbow, and then I was in a sling, so I had, can't see it, but your arm in a sling, like you see people, and gave me some pain pills. I went home with my parents that night, and so they could watch me, and then I played the concert less than 24 hours later with one arm, with the band Judah. I think we played 15 songs. I even was brave enough and took a solo. So I had a double bass drum kit at that time, so a bunch of 16th notes on the bass drum, in one arm, hopped up on pain pills. But I was in this frame of mind and this mindset that, yeah, this happened to me and this was bad, but it was not going to prevent me from playing the concert. And again, this is early 90s, and so I thought, Rick Allen from Def Leppard plays one arm all the time, and he had his arm ripped off in a car accident. I have a broken wrist. And, you know, I can do this. And it wasn't out of mockery of Rick Allen. It was circumstantial. So I had my arm in a cast and I sat down and I played this concert. Now, fortunately, my drums were already set up from the rehearsal the night before. And then that night, my dad got to be my drum tech. And he broke down my drums for me as I instructed him. And we took the drums back to my parents' house. And I think I stayed with my parents for a couple of days as I kind of stabilized. But man, that pain was so deep in my wrist and my arm, just this ongoing throbbing ache. And I think maybe for about a week and a half, I would try to sleep. I'd be on my back with my arm up like this, and I would like self-soothe, just going, until I fell asleep. It was quite pathetic. But I mean, that all comes back to like this complaining, like no complaining. That was completely out of my control, this car accident. And I could have easily, and even the band saw me walk in to the venue, and I come walking in and I've got a hat on because I would not normally play with a hat on, and my arm in a cast and sling. And I remember the bass player looked at me and goes, "No way!" And the whole band, they didn't know what had happened. We didn't have cell phones like we do now, and they were like, "We can cancel the show. We don't have to do the show." And I said, "No, I'm here. Let's do the show. I'm ready to go. I can do this. No problem." That's exactly what we did. No problem. Played the show, one-armed. And so I was just thinking of that story after people were commenting on my Def Leppard cover of, some of them teasing me a little bit, like, "You're cheating," and that was just in jest. And then other people were pretty serious about it. Like, "Let's see you accomplish what you just did with one arm, like Rick Allen." And I said, "Man, I'm going to leave that whole awesome thing to Rick Allen. I'm not going to video myself playing one arm, just because I would think that would come across as mocking." So that was my brush with death, I guess. I remember I worked for Hertz Rental Car at that time, and because I always had jobs that I could just quit so I could try to be a drummer. And so I had a job washing cars at Hertz Rental Car at the airport, and we had a full functioning shop. And so I obviously didn't go to work for a little while, and I went back to the wrecking yard with a pickup truck and a flatbed trailer to load up my pickup because it had been taken, tow truck took it. And I went there and it's sitting on its wheels. And it's just a flat hunk of junk with wheels on it at this point. And I walk in with my arm in a cast, and the guy behind the counter said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm here to pick up my truck. I rolled it on the freeway the other night." And he said, "You were in that vehicle?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "And you're alive?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh man, we see car accidents like this happen all the time, and survival rate of that kind of accident is very slim to none. Even with me laying down, I mean, I didn't choose to lay down that direction. It was just the inertia of the truck flipping over made me lean that way. And even then, the way that the cab had smashed down and me being kind of bounced around in there a little bit, like I could have had some severe head trauma that would have killed me, or something, or even pieces of metal maybe stabbing through me. Or I mean, you could think of all these worst case scenario things, but that didn't happen. So very thankful for that. But again, it's my real dad, as many of you know, died in a plane crash when I was 6 years old. And I've thought off and on through my whole life, like, what went through his mind? Like, what was he thinking about? And, you think of people in tragic accidents, like, we from the outside probably look at that like this horror that we're facing, this inevitability of the end. And once I had that experience, because those things happen so incredibly quick, like either you don't know what's happening or you have no time to even react to it, like I did like I said, I was going 70, truck just spun so fast, and I was completely calm and just thought, this is it. And then I was out. I was completely out. So I think any of us that have loved ones or people that we know that have had those tragic things happen to them, I think maybe we can have some kind of peace that it wasn't what we thought maybe it was for them, that it was quick and painless and maybe beautiful the way that it happened. Just completely, you're alive and then you're not. That's how quick I think those things happen. So I hope that didn't bring anybody down, because I just wanted to talk about Def Leppard. But I just encourage you guys, like, as you're going through your week, this challenge it's not a challenge. I say it's a challenge because my friend Matt Starr has made these challenges off and on through the years of 30 days of no complaining, no gossip, and no opinions. And then I think I added on to that no yelling. So very, very difficult to do, because you just realize we complain about so much stuff, and so much stuff is that in the grand scheme of things are really insignificant.